Uneven and brittle are two of the words Christine Lagarde, the managing director of the International Monetary Fund, has been using this week to describe the state of the global economy. Her comments have cast rather a gloomy cloud over the IMF's meetings in Washington. With me to discuss it is Ferdinando Giugliano, who's the FT's International Economic News editor. Ferdinando, just why has the IMF suddenly turned so gloomy?
Well, I mean, the forecasts have been slashed compared to April by a little bit. Yeah. But actually what's really interesting is that now the IMF thinks there is a higher probability of the Eurozone, for example, falling back into recession.
It's basically blaming the Eurozone.
Well, it's partly blaming the Eurozone, but if we look, for example, at the figures for Brazil and Russia, two emerging markets, they've also been revised downwards.
Do you think this is right? I mean, it seems a bit strange. I mean, there's no obvious reason to revise down global growth as such. The two countries you mentioned, there's specific reasons why they've been downgraded. I mean, and Russia, obviously, we've had the crisis over Ukraine. Eurozone, perhaps a bit different. But generally, the global picture has been quite positive this year.
Well, you're right. I think, the US economy is starting to recover quite nicely. Good numbers out of the UK.
China's still growing reasonably strong.
China still clearly slowing, but still growing fast. But I think geopolitical tensions are in a way casting a shadow over this meeting. And at the same time, the Eurozone is really starting to worry the people who are gathering in Washington.
Just why do you think the Eurozone's become a worry suddenly? We've had some very poor data from Germany this week, but again, there's no obvious explanation. Maybe it's just a blip.
Well, I think the inflation numbers are clearly worrying many, with the
low inflation.
With low inflation coming down to 0.3%. But at the same time, I think Germany is really now a big talking point. We've had really bad industrial order number, export number, and industrial production numbers. Now, some say it's just a one data point, a blip. But actually, lots of economists think that perhaps the Russia and the geopolitical tensions in Ukraine are having a bigger impact.
Yeah, and what we've heard in Washington, a lot of discussion about infrastructure investment. That was presumably directed at the Germans.
Well, I think it's clearly a message for the Germans. It's come from both the French and the Italians. You would have expected that.
Yes.
But it's also coming from the European Central Bank, with Mario Draghi saying countries which have space, and Germany is one of that because it's got its...
Yeah, so the question is whether the Germans will listen. I mean, whether they'll take lessons, if you like, from the French or the Italians. What do you think?
For now, they don't seem to want to listen. In fact, some people are making the case for even more fiscal prudence, even more austerity in Germany because things are not looking that good. However, I think if numbers turn out to be really bad, you could start seeing perhaps the political sentiment shifting, and that could go certainly in the direction which is hoped for by the ECB.
You think the pressure will grow on Berlin to spend more on infrastructure or to be a little more fiscally...
Well, I think the case is quite clear. The question is what voters want. So far, unemployment's been very low in Germany, so there is no reason for voters to protest about the government fiscal policy. But if that changes, well, the government may change its mind.
Ferdinando, do you think this changes the way we've sort of imagined the world economy developing this year, leading to eventually interest rate increases in the US next year and perhaps even earlier in the UK? Do you think we should be questioning that scenario now?
Well, it's really interesting. Yesterday in the minutes from the Federal Reserve, we saw the policymakers in Washington are worried about geopolitics. That could possibly push the first interest rate rise forward a little bit. Delayed. Sorry, that's what I meant. Delayed a little bit. But overall, I think the normalization is still happening.
They were also worried about terrifying the markets by bringing interest rates up too early. Ferdinando, I think we're going to have to stop there, but thank you very much.